You chase money like a slave, desperate, emotional, and blind to the power that creates it. Kings do not chase gold, they command it. Tyrants do not beg for opportunity, they engineer it. In this video, we will strip away your illusions about wealth and power, and show you how the ruthless think, move, and conquer in a world that only obeys those who control it. In every age, the weak toil for coins while the cunning rule empires. Men speak of success as if it were found in luck, talent, or morality. Yet they forget that fortune bends only to those who understand control. To acquire wealth without power is to build a palace of sand. The true rulers of men are not merchants of gold, but architects of perception. They move unseen, shaping markets, emotions, and minds with quiet precision. Tonight, I will teach you the ancient alchemy of domination. How to acquire money like a king, but think like a tyrant. For only those who master both can remain untouchable in a world ruled by shadows. You believe you're chasing wealth, but tell me, when was the last time money ever chased you? Most men live like prisoners chained to gold. They wake, work, and die for it, never realizing that the chain they polish is the very one that keeps them bound. The illusion of wealth is not poverty. It is servitude disguised as success. Look at history. Kings did not run toward coins. They made others bring the coins to them. The merchants, the laborers, the desperate, all moved under the illusion that they were free. Yet in truth, they were all financing the power of someone else. This is the first law of real power. Control begins where dependence ends. A man who needs money will never command it. The one who makes others need him will. In Florence, I once watched the Medici rise not by the sword, but by gold. Yet their wealth was not what gave them power. It was their ability to make others believe that they could not live without them. Bankers, popes, even kings bent their knee to the invisible leash of credit. The Medici didn't chase coins, they created systems where every coin returned home to them like a loyal servant. And here lies your error. You chase currency, when you should be chasing control. The modern man has replaced the whip with a paycheck. He serves his masters not out of fear, but out of comfort. You call it ambition. I call it domestication. Ask yourself, when you wake up early, exhausted, and still drag yourself forward for the promise of a number in your account, who truly owns your time? Who owns your mind? You or the one who pays you just enough to keep you coming back? The illusion is perfect, because it feels voluntary. Wealth, in truth, is not measured by how much gold you gather, but by how easily you can make others move for your interests. That is the tyrant's secret. He controls the current that others drown in. Consider the Emperor Augustus. He inherited chaos and turned it into empire. Not by force alone, but by redefining wealth itself. He made loyalty more profitable than rebellion. He turned service into ambition. Men followed him not because they feared death, but because they sought his favor. And in doing so, they became his wealth. You see, real money is not in your bank. It's in the beliefs of others. When they believe you can provide, protect, or elevate them, they become the currency you spend. The tyrant understands this. The peasant does not. That is why kings built thrones while peasants built debts. The tyrant does not work for money. He works for position. Because from position comes the ability to bend the flow of resources without ever touching them. Think of it like this: money is water. The fool builds a bucket, the cunning builds a dam, and the tyrant, he builds the river itself. Control the flow, and the gold will obey you. But to do this, you must escape the illusion that money itself has value. It does not. Its power comes only from belief. A belief planted, nurtured, and exploited by those who understand human weakness. Observe the markets. A panic spreads, a rumor blooms, and entire empires lose billions in hours. Nothing tangible changes, only perception. The tyrant profits from this storm, for he understands that fear moves faster than reason. He knows that the crowd will always trade freedom for security, and pay handsomely for the illusion of control. That is the highest form of wealth, to own the illusions others live by. If you wish to ascend, stop asking, "How do I earn more?" and start asking, Whose desires feed my wealth? Because every system of power, every empire, every corporation, every digital kingdom runs on one rule: someone must believe so that another may rule. So, what are you, believer or ruler, servant or strategist? Remember this: money, at its core, is a mirror. It reflects the hierarchy of minds, not labor. The poor man's sweat builds the rich man's illusion. The middleman's ambition sustains it, and the wise man's detachment profits from it. Detach yourself. Watch how others move for gold, how they fight, scheme, and sell their integrity for it. Then ask, who benefits from their blindness? Once you see that, the illusion shatters. And when it does, the first seed of tyranny takes root. The realization that wealth was never the goal, control was. Now you are ready for the next law. How the tyrant sees the game not from within, but from above. Because to rule gold, you must stop touching it and start moving those who do. You see life from the ground. You look up, and the world looks impossible to control. Too many players, too many moving parts, too much chaos. That is because you are inside the game. The tyrant, however, does not stand among the pieces. He stands above the board. He sees not individuals, but patterns. He watches how fear moves one man, how ambition drives another, and how vanity blinds them both. From above, human behavior becomes predictable, and once it is predictable, it becomes controllable. You must rise to that view. Most people react. They are slaves to emotion, slaves to outrage, slaves to the moment. The tyrant never reacts. He arranges. He places triggers long before anyone notices they exist. Consider Julius Caesar. When he crossed the Rubicon, people called it courage. It was not courage. It was calculation. For years he had studied Rome, its senators, its generals, its weaknesses, like a hunter studying prey. When he finally acted, the decision had already been made by the vanity and corruption of others. Caesar did not play their game, he made their flaws play for him. That is the essence of tyrannical vision, to see not what people do, but why they do it, and to turn that why into your weapon. Ask yourself, do you see the world, or do you merely feel it? When someone insults you, do you analyze their motive, or do you surrender to emotion? When an opportunity appears, do you ask who benefits most if you move first? This is what separates the ruler from the ruled. Perception. Imagine a chessboard. The fool looks only at the next move. The wise player sees 5 moves ahead. But the tyrant? He builds the board itself. He decides which game others must play. To think like him, you must cultivate distance. Not only from others, but from yourself. You must learn to watch your own impulses as if they belong to someone else. Observe how easily pride demands reaction, how ego whispers for recognition. These are chains disguised as instincts. The tyrant breaks them by awareness. In politics, in business, in love, the same principle rules. Whoever stays inside emotion loses sight of power. The one who steps above it rules. History rewards those who rise beyond immediacy. Think of Napoleon. To his soldiers, he appeared fearless, even reckless. But behind every charge, every speech, every gesture was calculation. He understood how appearance controls hearts. He staged his victories like a theater, each moment designed to reinforce his divinity. His enemies saw a general, he saw an idea taking shape. An empire built on perception. You must develop that same mental distance. See events not as isolated happenings, but as currents in a larger tide. A friend's betrayal, a business failure, a lost opportunity. They are not ends, they are data. The tyrant studies them coldly. He asks, what can this teach me about human nature? What weakness did I reveal? What leverage can I extract? Most people want comfort. The tyrant wants clarity. It's why true rulers seem emotionless. Not because they lack feeling, but because they know emotion clouds precision. They reserve feeling for strategy, not reaction. And this is where most men fail. They fight battles that mean nothing. They argue to be right instead of to gain power. They chase validation instead of position. They cannot rise above the game because they are addicted to playing it. When you learn to step back, to observe instead of participate, everything changes. You begin to see patterns others cannot. You predict before they act. You influence without speaking. Even in modern times, this principle remains. The richest do not compete. They create the environment of competition. The most powerful leaders rarely appear. They design the narrative that guides the visible ones. The tyrant's mind operates from the clouds. He sees nations as organisms, people as impulses, and opportunities as storms waiting to be directed. He does not pray for fortune. He engineers it. So how do you reach this height? You start by refusing to react. Each time emotion rises, step back. Watch it. Ask what power hides inside this moment. Turn every feeling into data, every setback into a map. Soon you'll notice that most of life is predictable. Not because it's simple, but because people are simple. They repeat the same desires: safety, admiration, significance. Learn these desires, and you can move crowds with a whisper. This is how kings become gods, by mastering perception before mastering force. Remember, the tyrant sees the world as a machine, not a mystery. He pulls levers while others pray for luck. And when he finally descends from the tower, he does so not to play, but to rule. Now you begin to glimpse the world from above. But clarity alone is not enough. To command it, you must remain untouched by it. Attachment is the easiest way to be controlled. The moment you need something, approval, love, wealth, respect, you have given someone the strings to move you. The world pulls those strings every day, and men dance, believing they act freely. Strategic detachment is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of it. It means you choose when to feel and when to become cold as marble. Most fail here. They think passion equals strength. But passion ungoverned is a leash around your neck. The rulers of history, the true ones, understood that emotion is a weapon best used against others, never against oneself. Look at Marcus Aurelius, philosopher king. Surrounded by war, betrayal, and death, he ruled with stillness. He wrote not about conquest, but control. The dominion of the mind over chaos. He knew that the man who stays calm when all others burn becomes a god in a world of frightened mortals. Detachment gives that power. Ask yourself, how many times have you made a decision because you were afraid to lose something? A job, a relationship, a reputation. Fear of loss makes you predictable, and the predictable can be exploited. The tyrant sees this weakness and uses it as leverage. He rewards your emotions when they serve him and punishes them when they rebel. The more you feel, the more he learns your limits. That is why the cold rise faster. It is not because they are cruel, it is because they are clear. When emotion burns through you like fire, detachment is the ice that keeps your reason alive. Imagine a battlefield. The emotional soldier charges at the first insult. The detached general waits. He lets others exhaust themselves in anger, then advances when all defenses are down. Victory is not granted to the strongest, but to the most composed. In modern life, the battlefield has changed, but the strategy remains. The investor who panics when the market falls loses to the one who watches calmly. The negotiator who takes offense loses to the one who smiles through insult. The lover who clings loses to the one who could walk away. Detachment turns every encounter into a study, every betrayal into a lesson, every loss into information. It transforms suffering into leverage. Do you understand how powerful that is? Because when you no longer need anyone's approval, their power over you dies. You become unpredictable. And in the psychology of power, unpredictability is dominance. Think of the Medici. They funded kings, popes, and artists, but they never loved any of them. Their money was a leash around Europe, and their hearts were nowhere to be found. They understood that sentiment invites dependence, and dependence invites ruin. The same law applies to your mind. Every emotional attachment is a point of entry for manipulation. If you are easily flattered, you can be deceived. If you are easily offended, you can be provoked. If you are desperate for recognition, you can be bought. Strategic detachment is the art of removing these handles before others find them. You may wonder, does this not make one cold even inhuman? No, it makes one sovereign. It allows you to love without being enslaved by love, to earn without being enslaved by wealth, to serve without being enslaved by gratitude. You participate in life but never drown in it. The Stoics called this patheia, not indifference, but independence. When you master it, your perception sharpens. You see that most people are ruled not by reason, but by the illusions of attachment, a constant need to prove themselves worthy, to be seen, to be chosen. They are trapped in invisible chains of validation, and so they react, they panic, they overreach, they self-destruct. You, however, will remain still. Stillness is not weakness. It is camouflage. The calm man looks harmless until he moves. Then his movement is fatal because it is deliberate. The detached man does not chase opportunity, he creates it through patience. He waits until others destroy themselves in emotion, and then steps forward to claim what remains. That is the silent rhythm of power, to wait, watch, and strike without passion. Learn this, and you will notice something terrifying. The more detached you become, the more the world bends toward you. People mistake your calm for superiority. They project wisdom onto your silence. They begin to seek your approval without realizing it. You no longer chase influence. It begins to orbit you. But beware, detachment must never become apathy. The tyrant uses distance not to escape life, but to command it. Coldness is a weapon, not a refuge. So use it wisely. The moment you master your emotions, you inherit control over those who cannot. And when that mastery deepens, when calm becomes instinct, you will unlock the next secret of power. How to turn perception itself into a currency that commands obedience without force. Power is not taken. It is given by those who believe you deserve it. The greatest rulers in history understood this truth. They did not waste their lives proving strength. They made others perceive it. Because perception, once shaped, becomes reality. And in the realm of human psychology, reality is irrelevant next to belief. You may hold truth in your hands, but if the world believes a lie, the lie will rule. The tyrant does not fight this, he uses it. Consider Alexander the Great. His empire was not built by conquest alone, but by myth. He carried himself as the son of Zeus. Even his enemies whispered it. That belief, irrational, divine, intoxicating, gave him an authority no sword could challenge. His men followed not a general, but a legend. You see, authority does not come from force, it comes from faith. Faith in your superiority. Faith in your inevitability. Faith that you are what others can never become. Do you see why so many chase approval, yet so few gain respect? Because respect cannot be begged for. It must be engineered through perception. The common man seeks to be understood. The powerful man seeks to be feared and misinterpreted. Mystery is his armor. When people cannot define you, they imagine you. And their imagination always paints you larger than life. That is the first currency of power, the unknown. Think of it. When you meet someone silent, unreadable, detached, your mind fills the void with power. You project intelligence, dominance, danger. You make them powerful by your own imagination. That is how perception works. It's a mirror that multiplies the smallest spark into fire. Now imagine learning to control that mirror. In Renaissance courts, every gesture, every silence, every rumor was calculated. A prince would remain unseen for weeks, letting his absence ferment into legend. When he finally appeared, people knelt before the myth they had created. His power was not in what he said, but in what they believed he could say. The same law governs today. Politicians, billionaires, celebrities. They craft images more carefully than strategies. They understand that mystery attracts, and attraction obeys. The more others want to know you, the more control you have over what they think they know. This is why you must stop explaining yourself. The more you explain, the weaker you sound. Words dilute power. Silence concentrates it. When they question your motives, let them. When they speculate about your past, let them. When they misunderstand you, smile. Every misconception adds to your aura, because control is not achieved by constant visibility, it is maintained by selective exposure. Show little, reveal less. And when you finally speak, make every word sound inevitable, as if fate itself had placed it on your tongue. This is how authority becomes currency. It buys obedience without resistance, loyalty without logic. Perception turns followers into believers. And believers are far more dangerous than soldiers. Do you think the church ruled medieval Europe by armies? No, it ruled by illusion, by symbols, rituals, and the careful control of mystery. The people feared what they did not understand and obeyed what they could not question. Even kings bowed to unseen forces because perception made them real. Power is not about truth. It is about control over what others see as true. To master this, you must learn the subtle art of narrative. Every great ruler writes two stories, the one he tells the world, and the one the world invents about him. The wise feed both. You must feed your legend carefully, like a flame that burns brightest when protected from too much air. Reveal too little, and they lose interest. Reveal too much, and they see the man instead of the myth. Walk that line, half seen, half imagined. And remember this: people love what they cannot possess. The moment you become fully known, you become ordinary. The moment you are predictable, you are powerless. Mystery is the veil that separates a leader from the crowd. So learn to move within it, gracefully, deliberately. Dress it in silence, feed it with rumor, polish it with confidence. Let others chase understanding while you command belief. Because when men cannot explain your power, they will justify it instead. They will tell themselves you deserve it. They will protect it for you. And that is how perception becomes your fortress. But the truly dangerous know an even greater secret: mystery must eventually transform into devotion. Because once people believe in your myth, the next step is to make them need it. That is where the real tyranny begins. Not in force, but in fascination. Every empire is built on a trade. Not a trade of goods, but of virtues. The powerful learn early that to gain control, something human must be sacrificed. You cannot rise by kindness. You cannot rule through empathy. And you cannot be free if your heart still seeks to please. Most people never understand this law. They chase power, yet cling to softness. They want influence, but also the comfort of being loved. But you, if you wish to rule, not serve, must decide which currency you value most: emotion or control. Empathy is beautiful, but it binds. Every time you feel deeply for another, you become vulnerable to their will. You start protecting their comfort instead of your purpose. You become their shield. And no ruler ever leads while wearing armor made of guilt. History's greatest figures knew when to trade empathy for clarity. Consider the rise of Octavian, the man who became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. When Caesar was assassinated, the Republic wept. Octavian did not. He watched. He calculated. He manipulated pity into power. He turned public sorrow into a weapon and transformed a fallen uncle into divine propaganda. That is how a man becomes immortal, not by feeling deeply, but by using the feelings of others. Tell me, would you have hesitated as Octavian did not? Would you have stopped to mourn when the throne was still unclaimed? The moral man hesitates. The powerful man acts. Empathy clouds the timing of decisive action. It makes you slow when the world rewards speed. It makes you doubt when advantage demands cruelty. Cruelty, when used wisely, builds order. Mercy, when used blindly, destroys it. Yet this does not mean you must become heartless. It means you must decide when to feel. That decision, that control, is what separates tyrants from victims. Even Niccolò once wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both." But few understand the psychology behind that line. Fear creates distance, love creates dependence. Distance grants perspective. Dependence breeds chaos. The ruler needs perspective. The servant drowns in emotion. Empathy can move people, yes, but it must never move you. Use it as a language, not as a master. Speak compassion when it wins loyalty. Display concern when it feeds trust. But beneath that mask, remain untouched. Because the moment others see you bleeding, they will learn where to strike. In the courts of the Renaissance, this was survival. Princes smiled as they planned assassinations. Courtiers praised men they plotted to ruin. Empathy, when genuine, was a liability. Detachment was protection. Do you think this has changed today? Modern politics is built on the same theater. Leaders pretend compassion because it sells obedience. CEOs perform concern because it softens manipulation. The entire world runs on emotional illusion, and the ones who see through it quietly rule those who don't. This is the ruthless exchange. Trade empathy for strategy. Trade the need to be liked for the power to decide. Trade comfort for command, and in return, you will gain the rarest form of wealth: freedom from dependence. Freedom from needing others to agree with you. Freedom from fearing rejection. Freedom from emotional blackmail disguised as morality. It is a dark liberation, but liberation nonetheless. Ask yourself, how many times have you betrayed your own judgment just to protect someone else's feelings? How many times have you stayed silent to keep the peace, while your silence cost you authority? Those who live to comfort others die in obscurity. Those who are willing to wound, when necessary, carve their names into history. Every throne is built from broken attachments. Every empire demands its sacrifices. Alexander burned Persepolis to prove that sentiment would never rule him. Napoleon left his army to rot in Egypt to preserve his legacy in France. Both were condemned by morality and crowned by history. You cannot serve two masters, conscience and control. You must choose. Empathy gives you harmony with others. Power gives you dominion over yourself. When you have both, you may rule justly. When you must choose, rule coldly. Remember, emotion is the language of the crowd. Strategy is the tongue of kings. To govern others, you must first silence the voice of guilt within yourself, because guilt is the leash the weak place around the necks of the strong. Cut it, and when you do, something terrifying happens. The world begins to obey your will, not because it loves you, but because it fears disappointing you. That is the quiet glory of the cold. But even this power has a higher form, when you no longer need to appear strong, because your control is invisible. That, my friend, is the final law, the law of the silent hand. The loud rule briefly, the silent rule forever. True power does not announce itself. It whispers through influence, shapes perception, and bends events without revealing its source. Those who boast of power rarely possess it. The ones who truly command need only gesture, and the world rearranges itself accordingly. You must understand this law. Visibility is vulnerability. Every time you show your hand, you expose your limits. Every time you demand recognition, you admit dependence. The masters of control stay hidden, their fingerprints wiped clean from every decision they direct. This is the law of the silent hand, to control everything by appearing to control nothing. Think of the Medici once more. They were not kings, they wore no crowns. Yet popes, emperors, and armies moved according to their will. They financed both sides of wars and blessed both victors and losers. When rivals accused them of manipulation, the Medicis smiled because by the time suspicion arose, control had already been secured. They ruled invisibly. That is the highest form of dominance. When others fight your battles, defend your name, and advance your interests, all while believing it was their own idea. You have seen this in your own life. The man who argues for control loses it. The one who insists on authority is doubted. But the one who moves quietly, who influences decisions without claiming ownership, becomes indispensable. He is the unseen architect of outcomes. Look closer at history. When kings were overthrown, who replaced them? Often not the generals who fought, but the advisors who whispered. Richelieu in France, Metternich in Austria, Rasputin in Russia, all ruled behind curtains of secrecy. Their power flowed not from position, but from proximity. They made rulers dependent, then invisible hands shaped the crown itself. Would you rather be the king or the one who teaches kings how to think? The crowd worships the throne, the strategist owns the key to it. This is psychological warfare in its purest form. To make others act in accordance with your design while preserving the illusion of their independence, and the secret lies in restraint. The desire to display power is the first sign of insecurity. The powerful have no need to convince. They understand that dominance thrives in subtlety. A single silence can command more obedience than 1,000 speeches. In politics, This is called plausible deniability. In psychology, it is known as perceived autonomy. Both mean the same thing: control the outcome, but never appear responsible. Let others speak in your name. Let others fight for your idea. Let them believe it was theirs. The deeper that belief runs, the tighter your hold becomes. Have you ever wondered why the most effective manipulators appear harmless? Why they smile, listen, and rarely react? Because calmness disarms suspicion. The loud invite scrutiny, the quiet invite trust. Trust is the first step towards surrender. The silent hand does not seize control. It earns it through invisibility. Even today, in boardrooms and governments, this law dominates. The visible leaders serve as symbols. Faces to absorb blame, mouths to deliver orders. Behind them sit the silent few, untouched by failure, enriched by every decision. They are the ones who never need to explain themselves. Learn to move like them. Speak less. Observe more. Let others reveal their strategies while you reveal nothing. Become the mirror in which they see what they want to see. When people project their desires onto you, they hand you their minds without realizing it. You must never crave recognition for your influence. Recognition kills subtlety. The moment people know you pull the strings, they will cut them. Disguise your ambition under loyalty. Cloak your authority in humility. Let others underestimate you. It is the most efficient armor ever forged. Remember, exposure invites attack. Mystery invites obedience. This is why even kings once prayed to unseen gods. Power hidden behind the veil commands both fear and devotion. To master this law, practice absence. Step back when others rush forward. Watch the chaos you predicted unfold. Guide it gently, invisibly. Do not lead armies, lead minds. Because minds shape armies. When you finally act, do so like fate, inevitable, untraceable, and beyond blame. The mark of the silent hand is that it leaves no mark at all. So ask yourself, do you want to be seen as powerful, or do you want to be powerful? Those who choose visibility become targets. Those who choose invisibility become legends. You must decide to shine for a moment or to command for a lifetime. Because when the world finally bows, it will not know whose shadow it kneels beneath. And that is how a man becomes untouchable. Not through force, not through fame, but through silence. Power is never taken. It is granted by those who do not realize they've surrendered it. The greatest manipulation is not to chain a man's hands, but to guide his thoughts until he moves exactly as you desire. He believes he is free, yet every choice he makes serves you. That is the essence of invisible control: to rule without ruling, to command without speaking, to dominate without ever appearing to try. Ask yourself, how many people already obey you without knowing it, and how many control you while smiling in silence? Remember, the one who shapes perception shapes reality itself. That is the silent hand's art. If this truth disturbed you, good. It means you've begun to see the game for what it is. Now, speak your mind below. Reveal what control means to you. Subscribe for more Machiavellian strategies. And share this video so others too may awaken to the cold beauty of power, because awareness is the first step toward mastery.